So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this channel named Geeks for Geek School. So, that's what the game is which we were developing yesterday, and today we are going to continue the same game. Now, what all things have we coded yesterday? That's what I would like to show you first. So, we are done with defining the code for this green background, which you are able to see at the back of this window. Besides that, we're done with defining the code for this player of ours and this enemy player, right? And if now we want to move this player of ours in the left direction, we can press A key for doing the same. And if we want to see it moving in the right direction, we can simply press D key for moving it in the right direction. So that's what we coded yesterday. Now, what we are going to do today, that's what I would first like to show you, and after that, I'll show you the code with the help of which we can make that possible. So, we are going to now code today this thing. As you can see here, this player is there is an animation which we are able to see happening over here to this player. So we are able to see it moving. The layers are moving. What is happening basically? The sprites are changing and the time delay is very less, because of which we are able to see this beautiful kind of animation happening over here. Then if I'll press this A key for moving this player in the left direction, then this will appear to us as if he's running in this left direction. Similarly, if we want to see it back on the screen, or we want to see the player running in the right direction, we can press the D key and we'll be able to see the player running in the right direction. Right, so that's how we can make the player run in both the directions. Right, and if you want the player to jump at any point of time, you can press W key for doing the same. Like this, you can make the player jump at any point of time. Right, so we have defined a floor kind of thing here. This red line which you're seeing is a floor, and we have defined this gravity for this floor so that we can make this player go stable as soon as it comes in contact with this floor, like this. Right, so that's what we are going to do today. That is what we are going to learn to code today. So stay there with me and don't skip any part. Right. Okay, let's come back on this shoot1.py. So I'm going to come right on the top, and here the first thing I would like to do is let's define a variable with which we can keep a check on the gravity part. So we can come down over here, clock.pygame.time.clock. Okay, so here we can define a variable. Uh, let's define a variable with name gravity. I think that will be good. So initially I would like to keep it as 0.75. I think that is going to be a good option. Let's now come on this class named soldier, which we defined yesterday for creating our player, if you remember. But before defining the code here, let me first show you something. So what I have done in this folder where the code and all these sprites are saved. Let me just show you that folder first. So it's there in this Python named folder, right, where all my Python files are there. So this is the shooting game which we are right now developing. So here what I have done, I have created this img named folder, and inside this I created 5 different folders. Right, so today we are going to concentrate on only these 4 folders, and tomorrow I'm going to show you how can you make the player shoot. For the same, I'm going to show you what all things I have in this icons named folder. right? So if you will come inside this death named folder, you'll find all these sprites over here. So these sprites I have put in this death named folder. Similarly, in this idle named folder, I have placed all these five sprites, right? And then in this jump named folder, I have placed only one sprite with name 0. And then in this run named folder, I have five different sprites. Right. So you know what is happening when we are pressing the A key, D key. So all these sprites are, the sprites are getting changed. So the first sprite that gets visible to the user is this one, right? And then it changes to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the change which takes place is so fast that it appears, the player appears to us as if it is running, right? So that's the concept which I have used for making the player appear as if it is running. Now let's define the code with the help of which we can access these sprites on our game window. So for this, I'll have to first uh, come inside this init function. So we don't have to change this thing. Let's define uh, this character type. I think this is required for checking the characters, whether it is the death, whether we are trying to call these characters which are there in this death named uh, folder, or idle named folder, or jump named folder. So for that, let's use this char type variable for checking whether the this player is alive or not. So we can use this alive named variable. It is totally your call. If you want to use some other variable, you can do that. So I'm initially, because it will be alive initially, so that's the reason I have assigned it with this true value. Then it's time for us to define the speed. We already have a variable over here with the help of which we're going to keep a check on the speed part. Then this is for the direction, and let's define something with the help of which we can keep a check on the velocity along the y-axis. So let's have this variable vel underscore y. Right, now we need to define a variable with the help of which we can keep a check on the jump. Right, so jump is that variable. Now if whether the player is in air or not, for this, for checking this, let's define another variable in underscore air, and let's initialize it with this boolean value true. Right, and then we have this self dot flip, which is I think perfectly fine. We require this. Okay, what else do we need? Self dot flip is equal to false. This is perfectly fine. Now we need an array kind of thing in which we can store all the images. So self dot animation, we can define a list kind of variable. I think that will be a very good option. Right, so let's make it an empty list, because as you can see, in this death named folder we have 8 different files. In this idle named folder we have 5 different files, so the number of files in these folders are different. So that's the reason it will be great if I define this empty list so that it can take any number of arguments. So then we can have this self frame underscore index. This is for calling these with the help of these index numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, okay. And then we can make use of this variable action. Perfectly fine. It's time for us to define something with the help of which we can update the time. So update underscore time is the variable which is going to help us in doing the same. Now from where can we do from where can we do this? We can use this get ticks, right? We can use this function get ticks, and this will help us in updating the ticks or the time. Okay, now it's time for us to load all the images for the players. So for that, let me see how can we do this. So in this soldier, we have all these variables. Let me put them all together. Perfect. If I am running, sorry, if I am running this, so what am I going to get? Let me just check it. So right now it is this. Fine, we have to change it to this. Right, we have to change it to something like this. Okay. Self.update, we are done. So it's time for us to load all the players images, right? What we can do, we can make use of this animation underscore types. Let's have this variable in which we are going to store the names of all the folders in which the files are there. So the name of the first folder is idle. Name of the second folder is run. So it's a very important concept to know about if you want to create an animated game. This concept is going to help you a lot. And we can have this folder named jump, and as you can see we have all three folders present over here: idle, jump, run. If you want to define, if you want to add this one to this list over here, you can do that also, but I don't want to code. I don't want to define the code for this one now. We are going to do it later on, maybe in the next lecture, right? Then we have to access all the images. So for that we can make use of an for loop. So let's have this variable animation. So for animation, in animation, sorry, animation underscore types, right? Is everything going fine? Yeah. So for, okay, let me just, yeah. So for animation, in animation types, what should happen? So we need to reset the temporary list of the images first. So temporary list we can create. Okay, and then after this we need to count the number of files which are present in the folder. Now how to count the number of files which are present in this folder? For example, in this idle named folder we have 5 files, so we have to first count the number of files. What we can do, it's very simple. We can make use of a variable, let's say number of frames. Okay, and then we can use this length function, len, and then there is a function in this OS. It is list directory function. If you know about this, it's a very good function with the help of which you can find out the number of frames you have in a particular folder. Then we need to pass the name of the folder. So we can put an f, sorry, we need to put this f first, and then inside these single inverted commas we can put the name of the folder in which all the folders are there. So these folders, these 4 folders are there inside this img folder. So img is the main folder, right? So img you can pass here, and then you can put a slash, and after that, because we have used this animation named variable here, we need to put these 2 brackets, and inside this we can put animation, right? It's very simple. When you will do it on your own, you will be able to understand it in a more better way. It's very simple. So we are done with defining the loop. Now it's time for us to come to this next line. So this is going to help us in counting the number of frames. Now let's define another for loop. So it is going to be a nested for loop because we are going to define it inside the first one. So this is the child for loop and this one is a parent for loop. So for I in range and I would like to keep this as range for this for loop. Okay, so img should be equal to pygame dot image, and then we can load the images. Now how to load the images? Again, it is very simple. We can simply copy this code from here. Just a second. It is load, and then we can copy this whole thing from here and we can put it here. Now the images are with name 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's what we can get from this I. So what we can do here, along with this whole thing, we can put this slash, and then we can simply put these brackets. Inside this we can put I dot png. So this is going to be the name of the first image. Suppose the value of I is initially it will be 0, right? So 0.png will be the image which the user will see first, and it will get updated automatically to 1. So it will be 1.png, and likewise we'll be able to see other images also. As so you know likewise we'll be able to see the other images also, right, with the value of I getting updated. Now it's time for us to come down here, and let's define this transform function. I already have this transform function over here. Can we use it? So that's what I want to see. Just a second, I need to come down. img is equals to, and let's make use of this whole thing. And I'm putting it right away uh, here, equal to this img. I think that is good to go. Fine. And then, so this for loop is going to run, and it will upload all the images. Then this will calculate for us, this will scale for us all the frames that are going to appear on the screen. And now it's time for us to append all the frames to this temporary list, right? How can we do this? So that's what we have to think. It's a very simple line of code that you can use for appending all the frames to this temporary list variable. Simply you have to put this temporary list over here, and you can use this function append. You must have heard about this function, right? And all the things are going to come in this image named variable. So that's the reason I've put image here. It's time for us to come out of this for loop, and let's define self dot animation list. It's time for us to append these this temporary list to this animation list. So we can simply pass this as a parameter to this append function, right? Okay, I think we are good to go. Then it is self dot image. It should be equal to self dot animation underscore list. Okay, and then self dot action. I would like to see it. I would like to see the player moving, that's the reason action. And then every image is going to have a specific index, has a specific index number. So frame underscore index we can put here, right? And then self dot rect. This is going to define a rectangle uh, for each and every image which is going to come on the surface on the window. Then self dot rect dot center x comma y. This is perfectly fine. So yes, so that's the code with the help of which we can make the player appear as if it is moving, or you can add some animation to your player while it is moving or while it is stationary also. Then also you'll be able to see it, some you'll be able to see some animation thing happen. Okay, it's time for us to come down and check the next thing. So we have this move function, dx is equal to d 0, dy is equal to 0. We don't have to change anything here. Then we have this moving left. So if moving left, if this condition is true, then dx should be equal to, so we don't have to change anything here. This will also remain as it is. Okay, so now if we want to make the player jump, see the way we have defined these conditions over here for making the player move in the left and right direction. The same way we'll have to define a condition for making the player jump. So if self dot jump is equal to true, right, and there is one more variable which we have to check the value of, which is in air, and if it is equal to false. Okay, if jump is equal to true and this is equal to false, means it is not in air, and what should happen, then the velocity y, because the movement will take place along the y-axis, right? So that's the variable, the value of which we need to check, or we can assign it some specific value. Let's say -11. Why -11? Because if the player is if the movement is taking place along the y-axis and we want to see the player going up, so the value of y decreases. That is the reason -11 I have assigned, so that we can see it going up. If you want to see it going down, you can assign a positive value. Self dot jump is equal to false, we can make, and then self dot in underscore air, we can make it true. So it's very simple, right? And now it's time for us to apply some gravity. Okay, so self dot velocity y, so plus is equal to gravity, and now let's check the value of self dot velocity underscore y. So if it is greater than 10, what should happen? So self dot velocity underscore y, and we can make this dy plus is equal to self dot velocity underscore y. So that's the condition with the help of which you can check the gravity. I hope everything is fine till now. If you have any queries related to whatever I have done, so you can put it in the chat box so that I can check your queries and I can reply to the same. And thank you very much to the students who are done with liking and sharing the video in the groups. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That is also very important. Okay, now it's time for us to check the collision of the player with the floor, with the red floor, right? So for that also we'll have to define a condition again. Let's do that quickly. So if self dot rect, because the player is bounded by a rectangle kind of thing. So if self dot rect dot bottom plus dy, okay, is if it is greater than 300, then what should happen? Dy should be equal to 300 minus self dot rect dot bottom. Okay, and then self dot in underscore air is equal to, it is a simple math which I have used here, right? So if this self dot rectangle dot bottom plus dy, if at any point of time it becomes greater than 300, and what should happen, dy should become equal to this, and self dot in air should become false, so the player should return back on that floor, right? Rest everything is going to remain the same. Okay, now it's time for us to define a function with the help of which we can update the animation which we want to see happening on our game window. So let's do that. Update, we can define a function with name update animation like this, and let's make use of this self variable. So initially, let's use this uh, variable animation cooldown, and I would like to initialize it with this value. Self dot image is equals to self dot animation underscore list, and it's time for us to do some action. So self dot action we can use, and simply then, because you know the every image is going to is do have a specific index number. See, every image here has a specific index number. For example, the index number of this one is 0, then this one is 1, of this one it is 2, then 3, then 4. So we need to mention the index also. So we can simply copy this, putting it here, and replacing this one with uh, frame underscore index. I think that's the one which I defined earlier, frame underscore index. Now we need to check if enough time has passed since the last update. Okay, so for checking that, we'll have to again define this if control statement. See, you must be finding it typical, maybe because you haven't attended the previous lecture in which I already explained you many things about this game. So it's better if you can go and check the previous tutorial which I showed it yesterday, and after that you can come on this and you can enjoy this code which I am defining right now. So I'm now the checking if enough time has passed since the last update. So that's how we can do it, right? And it's time for us to, just a second, have I defined it correctly? Okay, I think I'm missing here something. It should be pygame time dot get ticks. Okay, it should be minus here, right? Because for checking the update, we'll have to first subtract, and then we'll have to check whether it is greater than animation underscore cooldown or not, right? And now we can, if this condition is true, then what should happen? Then self dot update underscore time should be equal to pygame dot time dot, again we can make it equal to get underscore ticks, right? This is one of the coolest function, you know, that you can use for updating and getting the time. Then self dot frame underscore index, the index should change and it should become again, it should go on changing, sorry, by one, right? Let's now check if the animation has run out the reset back to start. If the if the animation has run out, then we need to reset the game back to the start. So for doing that, we need to again use this if control statement, and simply we can use this condition if frame underscore index is greater than equal to, let's check the length first. So length self dot animation, right, underscore list. Okay, so self dot underscore list we have done. Then what we have to exactly check, that's what we have to now see what exactly we have to check. So animation list, this is fine. So self dot frame underscore index is greater than, this is going to help us in calculating the length of self underscore list, and I would like to pass this self dot action also to this. I think this is now perfectly fine. Okay, we need to come out and then, sorry, we need to place a colon. Right, and inside this we can put self dot frame underscore index is equal to 0. If this condition is true, then in frame index should become equal to 0, right? So that's how you can update the animation. Now it's time for us to define a function with the help of which we can update the action also. So update action is the one which I'm making use of. Then we can have this new action, right? Okay, so now with this function, what we are going to do, we are going to check if the new action is different from the previous one, right? If new action is not equal to self dot action, so that's how you can check it. So if it is not equal, then what should happen? Then self dot action should become equal to new action, right? Simply make the two values equal. And now we need to update the animation settings also. For doing that, self dot frame underscore index is equal to 0, and then self dot update underscore time is equal to pygame dot time dot get ticks, right? That's how we can do it. It's so simple, right? I hope you guys are able to understand this whole code. So we're done with defining both the functions with the help of which we can check, we can update the animation as well as we can update the action. Then we have this draw function which is going to draw for us all the sprites on the game window. Then we have this main loop while that we defined yesterday, in which we are calling this player.draw. We have called this enemy.draw, and here we'll have to call that update animation function also. So right before this, let's call this player.update animation function also. So that's how we can do it, right? Then what should happen? This is fine. We have to check whether the player is alive or not, right? So for that also we'll have to define a function. Okay. So let's do one thing. Just after this enemy.draw, we can define this if control statement. If player is alive, if player.alive, then what should happen? Okay, so if player dot, we need to check whether he is in, it is, the player is in air or not. So if player in air, then player dot update colon comma, sorry, dot action. We can put 2 here. So 2 is for making the player jump. Okay, so player dot, it will make the player jump. Okay, else if we can put else if player dot alive, this is fine. Then what should happen? Else if, okay, let's do the same thing for moving left and moving right also, or moving right. Okay, if moving right or moving left, then what should happen? Player dot update action, it should be equal to 1, right? Otherwise, else what should happen? Player dot update action should be 0. The player should remain idle. Okay, and then we can ask the player to, okay, what we can do, we can simply cut this line of code and we can put it here, because we have to make the player move in the left and right direction also. So that's the one which is going to help us in doing the same. Then we have this for loop which is going to check for the event, right? Which event is occurring. So I think this code is good to go. There is one more thing that we can add here in this key down thing. So let's do that. If this event dot key, if suppose this event dot key is equal to pygame dot let's say k w. So if w the user will press, I want the player to jump and player is alive. We'll have to check both the conditions. The first condition is the player has pressed the W key. The second condition is the player is alive. The user has pressed the W key and the player is alive. Then what should happen? Player dot jump. I would like should become true, right? That's how we can call this player dot jump, right? Okay, this is fine. This is perfectly fine. Anything else we are missing? Let's try this game whether everything is working fine or not. Inconsistent use of tabs and spaces and indentation. Okay, let me just check. Again, we are getting indentation error today. Yesterday also the same thing happened. Because the code that we define is perfectly fine. Why it is showing this indentation error? Now that's what we'll have to check. Inconsistent use of tabs and spaces. Okay, but I think I'll have to do for every line I'll have to define this indentation now. That's the biggest problem with Sublime Text. Now if I'll run this, it has accepted these two lines, but it's not accepting this. Maybe it requires the indentation. No problem. Let me do it quickly. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay. If I'm if I'll now run this code, so it is going to show me some of the other thing. Self.rec.bottom. Okay, so here also it is showing this indentation issue. Now we'll be able to execute these three lines. Okay, so here it is showing this indentation error. Trying to fix the issue as thing now perfectly fine. Let's run this code. Yesterday also the same thing happened. The indent, just because of this indentation issue, we were not able to. We struggled a bit, and after that, it started. It worked fine, but the code worked fine, right? Okay, let's run this and see where are we going to get the indentation error now. Why it is not okay? It should be not equal to. The sign was not correct. We were able to see the window, but didn't get the output. Why is it so? Let's check the error. Player soldier for animation and animation type name. Animation types is not defined. Okay, so it is not able to read this animation types. Why is it so? Animation and animation. Okay, here the spelling is not correct. Now, what is the issue? So number of frames, length, name OS is not defined. Why OS is not defined? Why? Okay, I think I haven't ported OS. Maybe because of that, it is showing us this error. Function has no attribute action. Player update dot action. Player update dot action. So now it is not able to identify this action named function that we have used. Update action. Okay, so here it should be underscore. Okay, now we are able to get the output. So it is, we are able to see, we are able to move it. We're able to make it jump also. Okay, so the game is now perfectly fine. Okay, so that's what you will get as an output. You can see here, right? So we are able to make it jump. We are able to make it move in both the directions also. Fine. Okay, is there anything which is left? Uh, yeah. So that's it. Let me now check the comment section. If I have anything to answer, I would definitely like to answer those queries. And thank you very much to all the students who are there with me and who attended this whole lecture and were able to take away many things from this tutorial. Okay, so I'm not able to see any queries in the comment section. So I hope you guys have understood this whole thing. Thank you very much, all of you. God bless you all and have a great, great day ahead. Bye bye, everyone, and I'll see you in the next class. Take care.